We are about to get started with the summary of the IT Leader Survey for 2020. My name is Doug Theis. I'm the founder of IT Leaders. We've been running IT Leaders now for 4.5 years, and we're excited to share this data. Joining me is Raquel Richardson. Hi, Raquel.
Hello, good morning.
Talk about the company that you're with, please.
Oh, I'm with Centric Consulting. I help run our office here in Indianapolis, but we're all across the U.S.
And I'm with Expedient. Most of you know that Expedient has been underwriting IT Leaders now for many years, and we're proud to be part of that. Raquel, do you see the survey?
I do.
Up on screen? Great. Let's go ahead and get started. By the way, we've got Noah Grayson and Karen Ianta helping us. Karen's with Expedient, and she's the one that makes all the magic happen with these webinars. Talk a little bit about Noah, Raquel.
I was going to say Noah makes all the magic happen with these survey results. Noah helps lead our customer experience practice here at Centric. He is a phenomenal CX professional, and all that you get to see here is his hard work. So thank you, Noah.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Noah. Let's get started. Most of you know, if you're not familiar with Zoom by now, after a year of pandemic time, here's your lesson. This is your advice. Use the chat if you're interested in talking with us, or you can certainly submit in questions too. We're pretty flexible on this. Here's another picture of you and I, Raquel. All right. Do you want to talk about the background and methodology? I think that would be good place to start.
So I see some of the names that joined us last year. So thanks for coming back again this year. The objectives have not changed. We want to hear what's top of mind for you, what your challenges are, what some of the practices are that you've put into place. This survey is very related to Indianapolis, very related to the work that you do every day. And it also helps us leverage the type of content that might be most meaningful for you as we look across the 2021 year for your IT leaders meetings. So if you took the survey last year, you probably remember for this year, it was very similar. We did add more questions this year. Not sure that we'll continue that next year. It's something that we want to make sure is fine-tuned year after year to make sure it's most relevant for you. But it was web-based. It went to the entire membership. We had 65 completed, and we ran the survey the first 2 weeks of January. So we'll go ahead and dive into the results here. And this one made me smile, frankly, Doug. I think that it was just really cool to see that the majority of you said, you know what, we did a good job. And because you did, it was amazing how everyone adapted so quickly. If anything, I think it was IT's time to shine.
I think so too. I actually think IT got a lot of cred through the move to work from home and the idea of putting together a 2-month project and executing it in 2 weeks. I think I've seen IT get cred in a variety of industries, in a variety of company sizes as well. Drivers have changed. What about this one, Raquel?
So I also smiled on this one because I remember exactly, we were sitting in your conference room at Expedient, and we were talking about this one in terms of, as you see, that this question was one of the ones we kept exactly like last year. So in last year's survey, technology advancement had the lead, right? And we were commenting that I wonder how long it's going to take for customer experience to take the lead. And look at this year, it completely flopped. So technology advancement is now second. And not only did customer experience take the lead, but it jumped ahead quite a bit. We definitely know that was probably influenced from the pandemic. And one thing to note in this question, we did not include the pandemic as a driver of change. We felt like that was obvious. It was table stakes for everyone. So the other thing I like here is that, you know what, we kind of released our anxiety on our competitive pressures. Sometimes people get more caught up in what the competition is doing instead of what their own strategy and focus is, which can sometimes not play to their strengths the way it should. So I liked how that kind of decreased a little bit.
You brought up one of the most interesting insights, I think, from last year, and it's really reflected right here, Raquel, and that is that nobody can stand a crappy customer experience anymore. I mean, we've been on Zoom, we've been on Teams, we've been on WebEx. That's just one example. I mean, as we moved our lives online, the difference between a good experience with an application and a mediocre experience, I think, has been amplified.
Well, and a lot of people, the understanding of an essential worker played into that experience, and the individuals who deliver to our homes every day were part of that experience. And so it's the driver of that part of it, not necessarily um, from a B2B perspective, although it can very much be, but it just really heightened everyone's expectations as well as influence and opinion for that experience.
Yeah, yeah. There's no doubt about it. What about barriers?
So, I mean, I see this in my world a lot, in the consulting world, that change resistance and fatigue is high. And we only saw it get worse this year. Um, our people in change practice really drives home this particular one because one of my colleagues, his name's Ken Stark, he's actually here in Indianapolis. He focuses on process excellence, and he sees this all the time. In fact, he's got this equation that E equals Q times A. And E is that solution. We're always so focused on the solution, but we kind of miss the quality of that solution and the adoption of that solution, or maybe the acceptance of that solution. So you really have to look at that whole picture there, and the change fatigue absolutely plays into whatever adjustments you might be making to match the customer experience or to adopt new technologies. So that's gonna be a big deal, I think, not only this year, but maybe even the following couple of years as we try to figure out this new norm and navigating what's next.
On the second item here, legacy cost structures, we saw a lot of companies who were trying to retire or pay down technical debt as a side effect of the pandemic. Many of their budgets were put on hold. We'll see that in a few more slides. So the idea of finally getting a chance to attack technical debt happened across industries in our experience. Legacy cost structures are a barrier to retiring that technical debt. Yeah, we'd love to get rid of it, but we can't undo the side effects like cost and effort associated with them. How are we going to address that? I thought this one was interesting as well.
Yeah, I like that whole slide, frankly. There's a lot on there.
Yeah, for sure. What about mobile apps? We asked a lot about mobile apps this time around.
Yes, and you're only going to see this slide as the result page. It wasn't as compelling as maybe I was hoping it would be. I wanted to see where this would play. And it was funny that the year that we had might have influenced some of our, personal habits at work. For example, a lot of people were carrying around their laptops day and night, right? So it wasn't just working on your laptops. It became the way that you watched Netflix. It became the way that you talked to your family at night or played games. So mobile use maybe took a little bit of a backseat, and I think that might have happened as well at work. So I don't know that we have anything super exciting on this one. So.
Yeah, I think the coasts are probably a little bit ahead of us here in Indiana on mobile app adoption and where they're playing. It's also a B2B versus a B2C issue at some level too. So,
right. I know I personally I hit that fatigue pretty hard, and I would put my phone in my bedroom on a table that I don't pass frequently, just to get it away from me. And I would say, see you Monday, phone. So I became worse.
yeah, I thought this one was interesting. The 2021 process improvement benefit targets. Agility certainly played a big role in how we dealt with 2020.
Absolutely. And this one to me is so important because you've got a lot here, right? You may have a tighter budget. You might have a legacy system. you want to improve service, you want it to be more reliable and predictable, and you want to do it in a way that's flexible for everybody to adopt. Holy cow, right? And so it's not about necessarily, yes, let's pat ourselves on the back that we all moved home and we adjusted those processes, but are they optimized? Are there opportunities for automation somewhere? You've still got to think about this in a way that helps you successfully meet each of these targets. And you can only do that by reviewing each process and optimizing it for those targets. So this one could still be misleading and tricky, I feel like.
I think so too. And, we'll be working on process improvement in 200 years. I just, when we have people involved with trying to be efficient, it's always going to be a challenge. And I think it's probably one of the few places where AI and machine learning aren't going to help us much in the future. We're still going to need some humans in the pivot to make it work.
Agree.
So super interesting slide. This is one of my favorites in this. What'd you do with the budget? What'd you stop? What'd you start?
So yeah, I agree too. I like the restart in 2021. They don't know. 41% doesn't know. So how Raquel translates that means no. If you don't know, then no. So especially now. I don't know. I think I this one kind of puzzles me, because what are we working on then?
Yeah. It's interesting that so many projects, over half, weren't put on hold. They marched forward. And obviously, that's going to depend on the sort of project that it is. If you need heavy collaboration with the user teams, it probably became more difficult to deliver those things. What's happening in 2021 now, the uncertainty, I see it in almost every single conversation I'm having with clients these days. We are trying to bring the leadership team along kicking and screaming. We're trying to bring the user base along kicking and screaming, or we're trying to bring IT. And we're really, in many cases, negotiating a new set of projects. I mean, it's almost a change in governance just as a side effect of the pandemic.
Yeah, I sit on a board where we've prioritized and reprioritized 3 times. And it's
Wow.
a small organization, right? So, but that was just part of maybe a little bit of the process, because we landed in a really good place. So it is important to keep an eye on that, because especially as this slide also kind of hints at, if you've got limited wiggle room, you want to make sure you're dealing with the most pressing things that can get you the most impact.
Yeah, onto the budgets. Did we reduce the budget? 42% said no. I'm sorry, 42% said yes, but 52% said no on the left side of this graph here.
Yeah, and I'm, looking back, there are certain things, especially this one. Where did it get reduced? Did you just decide not to hire and add to the team? Was it part of, an initiative that you wanted to upgrade something or modernize? I think next year it might do well to inform the group on a couple other areas of, okay, if you adjusted where, because I think that might be helpful.
I think so too. And like you said, this is going to be quite project driven. I mean, some are easier than others to put on hold. If you're in the middle of a digital transformation and you've got a lot of dependencies, it's probably going to be a different view than if most of your projects can stand alone. Budget expectations for this year.
Are you surprised by this one?
I was surprised. The lower level, a lower budget to continue on with what you're doing. In some respects, I think this is reflecting uncertainty. The budget may be lower now. It may not be lower in 3 months after there's more discussion. I'm a big fan of governance. It's one of the easiest ways for people like you and me to determine whether we're dealing with a mature IT organization or not. And some people may love to hear that, and some people may not love to hear that. But the idea that we're moving forward in spite of, what looks like adversity, I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I feel like this one's very telling for how quickly and efficiently vaccines are rolled out, where people can feel like they can, have a little bit more of a norm where it doesn't involve constant decisions to do something. So that's going to weigh here, whether we like it or not. It's just going to play a role for a while.
I think so too. I was quite frankly surprised that 25% or higher budget expectations. That's a pretty good hunk.
Well, I wondered on that one if it was because they put things on hold.
Could be. Yeah, it could be the way they interpreted the question, for sure. Yeah, good point.
Doug, you and I might want to take a course on questioning so we can help people with questions better next year.
Yeah, thank God for Noah. Or I don't know that we would have, had such a successful survey. General business expectations for 2021.
This one feels very optimistic. I liked this one. Let's go get it is kind of how I interpreted this slide. There, even though there's a fatigue and a appreciation for where we all are, there's also a renewed momentum. And I this year more than ever, while I'm not sure what the true expectation was, but the new year switching had a mental play for people. It's like let's just get on, and they were ready to dig in a little bit more and a little bit differently to look at this new year. So I think it's very optimistic results here.
We did 3 all IT community webinars with 3 different panels last year. And the idea, like we said earlier, that IT has built some cred with the business. Hey, these guys they're doing what they say they were doing. They're helping us drive new lines of business. They're allowing us to be nimble in changing how we're addressing our clients and how we're addressing our competitive pressures and our changes in market. I agree with you that this is wonderfully optimistic, and I think we could all use a little bit more optimism in our lives. Yeah, really, really exciting.
Yes.
So this is one of your, and Centric for that matters, areas of expertise. Talk a little bit about this one, Raquel.
Well, yeah, this one and the next one is just, weaving into the people side of work, which I love that we added that. So these next couple of slides are all new to the survey from last year. And I think we want to keep them because everyone responded to these questions. They didn't skip them. And I think that's telling as well. Did we work more? I was not. Well, I guess I was surprised here because I thought 60%, I thought it'd be higher. I know you worked more, Doug. I know I worked more. I don't know anyone who didn't work more. So I was surprised to see this. And then the whole, fatigue on platforms like this is completely real. I feel like I had that more in the fall than, so I feel like I was a little bit later, but I definitely hit it. And teams in general, we are a heavy Microsoft partner, and we helped so many people move to Teams quickly. Microsoft calls it their fast track partner, and we were at the top of their list for the Great Lakes. And I feel like all I did was talk about Teams for a solid couple months, which was a good thing because we were just helping people churn it out because they did not have a way to communicate, chat, see people's faces. And a little part of me likes to think we helped humanize work because we were able to get this up fast. And, if you can remove one thing from somebody's day that helps them be better or happier, I'll take it.
I agree. I think we all got better at reading 2-dimensional body language by the end of the year. And I think that's where a lot of the fatigue comes from. Wall Street Journal addressed this. A lot of big publications address the fatigue. I can share a best practice with you on more hours worked. Make your meetings 25 minutes or 55 minutes. Give everybody the chance to have a bio break between meetings. I saw some really interesting behaviors around people skipping lunch or people immediately turning their commute time into more work time. And some of those behaviors are healthy, but as with anything in excess, it can be super dangerous.
I agree. You got an amen, brother, on that one.
So this one was contributed by one of our IT Leaders members. What are you doing to help yourself?
Well, and I totally related to this one because I did the number 1 and 2 came in both 60%. I walked more, and I created a space here in my basement. Welcome to my basement. I have a standing desk. I have a regular desk. I've got a canopy, kind of like a hammock over there when I want to take a quick break. I've got the whiteboards up. I've got my dog bed. I'm set. I just need a refrigerator down here. Then I'll be good.
Yeah, you can isolate down there for like 2 days straight for sure. What about most important company benefit? Did I jump ahead? I think I did.
That's okay. We're good.
Yeah, most important company benefit. This is fascinating to me, and naturally we gave a small set of options for this, but the results of this were super surprising to me.
I was very surprised too. I know that we all want to work from anywhere. I was hearing that feedback consistently, but to have it trump money that much was really, that surprised me. That was the surprising element for me.
And this is all over the board, right? If you've got 4 kids at home that you're trying to manage with school, or if you've got an elderly parent that you're taking care of, there's a number of challenges. I mean, I have a number of coworkers who adore the fact that they can go into work and be the only one in the office for a day and get some peace and quiet and actually get some work done. But yeah, I was bowled over by the fact that this was such a leader. Number 1 was such a leader compared to number 2.
The continued learning was not a surprise, but definitely a reminder that we all want to keep expanding ourselves, and I love that IT leaders groups help you do that, because sometimes you don't get it at work.
We're going to keep a virtual component to IT leaders once everyone feels like it's safe to return back to our big 109 room in the back of Expedient, where we've got 70 people talking and eating Jonathan Bird's biscuits and gravy. Remember that, everyone? Remember how good that was? What life was like a year ago? I look forward to that, but we're going to keep a virtual element. I mean, we had people attend, IT leaders who'd never attended before, because they had the flexibility to attend and then leave. It was, and not have the drive time up to Carmel. So super exciting. So, we got a little technical. I mean, we're switching more to the technical side of thing. As a cloud provider, we're interested in what people are doing, especially on new application development. What did you get from this slide, Raquel?
Well, so Azure is obviously big for us. I was surprised to see Google Cloud playing a little bit more of a role there, but I mean, I didn't see anything new for me here. Did you?
Well, we're a .NET town, Indianapolis is. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it. So it's not surprising to me that Azure application development is ahead. I think, being focused or, being platform specific in your choices, those are big decisions.
Right.
And what we find out is in deeper conversations, not everybody is giving those the consideration they thought. And unfortunately, it means that some people are having to unravel some of that work where, they didn't really give it enough thought up front. I, for one, am not surprised on the Google side, because they've got some AI and ML capabilities that are pretty impressive right now. And I see really the top three here as being platform plays that people are taking advantage of. They're not necessarily using any of these platforms for infrastructure, but they're using these platforms for platforms and taking advantage of the best tools they can get their hands on. Application developers, I think, love the idea of saying, screw you to the infrastructure people. I'm going to build what I want, and I don't need you to set up servers for us anymore. So that doesn't surprise me in the least. I wish it was that simple. I wish there wasn't a role for each one to play, but quite frankly, there still is. So frankly, I'm glad to see application development going full steam ahead, because we need new and better applications. Most are finding out it's more difficult than they'd planned. The budgets get overrun and the time get overrun, but I'm glad to see it happening just the same.
Yes.
Cloud strategy, naturally, this is interesting to me. Super glad. I of all the slides, this one makes me happy. Pick the right cloud for the job and understand that you're going to have some complexity that you carry with you to be in a multi-cloud platform. But frankly, you're in a multi-cloud platform. If you're running 1 or 2 or 10 software as a service applications, along with Office 365 and Teams, which you've done amazing work on at so many local clients, I'm glad to see people are considering a multi-cloud strategy as their best approach forward. How to do that is another story. I think there's a lot deeper, to be talked about on how you're approaching multi-cloud, and Expedient's actually going to be spending. We've got multi-cloud madness for March on this topic very specifically. So there's a shameless plug for Expedient. Single cloud platform is interesting to me too. I mean, there's a lot of people who've got the ability to stick with a single cloud, but it's less than you might think, who can make that an effective approach. And the rest of these are all, I find, interesting. I don't know that they're particularly telling about what strategies are going to look like a year from now, but I'm glad to see there's a focus on cost. I mean, most everyone we've worked with who is doing large scale work in the hyperscale clouds, cost is either 1 or 2 on their considerations. And the multi-cloud thing, if you're not paying attention to multi-cloud, you're probably doing it anyway. It's probably better to manage it rather than to ignore it. Anything else on this one, Raquel, from you?
Well, I feel like the last couple years, in our environment, we saw a little bit of a decline in overall IT strategy, and how that blends into the cloud strategy. And, to your point, the governance around that, how you're managing it, making sure you're managing it. So that was the only thing that I was thinking about with this one is, well, how is the cloud strategy blending into the overall IT strategy? So.
Yeah, great point. Cloud platform usage by investment, who's spending money on what? And if you'll notice, this is stacked. And the bottom, the darkest here, is the number 1. So software as a service is by far, I don't think that that's surprising to anyone. The idea of getting out of the data center business is everybody's mind. We're talking to, and software as a service, assuming the cost models are, assuming the interoperability is right, and assuming you're getting the features that you want, is a good path forward. In fact, the smartest companies that we're seeing, typically small companies, are trying to go 100% software as a service if it can meet their business requirements. Azure is a second. Doesn't surprise me. Again, we're a .NET town. We're a .NET state, for that matter. And the most common usage of that is Office 365 and all the surrounding tools. Here's a shameless plug for Centric. I made recommendations to, I think, 3 or 4 clients specifically last year to talk to you all about getting their team's implementation to a more mature level, and to do a little bit more collaboration beyond just teams. And you guys hit it out of the park every single time. So thank you for making my recommendations look fabulous. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that shameless plug. That was not planned. I appreciate it. Blushing a little bit. Have a great team here, so thank you.
The other good news, I think, is the VMware-based cloud. The biggest landmine we see people stepping on in multi-cloud environments is their legacy apps, their mission critical apps that are old code that they're not quite sure what to do with. And frankly, we believe there's a pile of evidence showing that moving from your VMware-based on-premises or co-located environment to a VMware-based cloud for those legacy mission-critical apps is by far the lowest friction method and oftentimes the least cost method to get those applications out of the way and get started or continue on with your digital transformation and your new application development or your refactoring application. I was a little surprised at how far behind Google was in this investment, but then again, if we look at the region that we're working with, maybe it's not so surprising.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the point there with the data side. If that's not part of the conversation, maybe it's not falling on your radar as much.
Yeah, good point. Downtime. Nobody wants to talk about it, but most people have it. This is good news. I think, this shows that we have much more mature IT than we've had in the past. We had an interesting observation from a few companies over the last month or two. When AWS is down, it's national news, and I'm not blamed as much for it as if my local infrastructure is down. I get the blame. Or if a smaller cloud provider is down, I tend to get the blame for that more than if AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform are down. So that's an interesting look at these problems. Honestly, the good news is that downtime, the cost doesn't seem to be changing. It's still expensive for most people. It still affects customers. It still affects credibility. It can affect market share in worst cases. So I think there's good news here. Anything to add?
Stress. This this slide just makes me stressed. You don't want any downtime.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you do, you've got some processes in place to deal with it.
We ripped through that data pretty quickly. We're very interested in questions from the participants. If you've got questions, please, now's the time to talk about these. Let's talk about, what do you see as the summary here, Raquel?
Well, overall, I feel like, given the situation that we all found ourselves in, we did well. We did pretty well. We have some optimism for this year. We're ready to get back to work, even if it's with a smaller budget and continuation of platforms like this. We're ready to dig in at a deeper level. And I feel like more people in more areas of the company are ready to talk about how they can contribute to the customer experience.
Yeah, agreed. I love the optimism. You pointed it out on a number of the slides. I love the fact that people are looking at this as a way to bring better value to the business through IT. We've been working on alignment, IT and business alignment, since the first mainframe landed in Indianapolis somewhere in the range of 1967. I know that because my father worked on the second one. And I was the kid wandering around between the key punch machines and the disk drives that look like washing machines. So alignment is one of the hardest problems that we have to do. And the fact that we did great work for the business in 2020 in light of all the change and that budgets seem to be coming back around and projects are getting picked up that were delayed, I think is super good news.
Agreed.
What about fatigue?
There's language right now that I'm hearing a lot of, it's okay to not be okay. And I think if we apply that, thinking that I'm hearing very consistently, it's okay to have fatigue. and it's okay to not want to change. But at some point, you have to acknowledge that you are being resistant or that you're tired of the change, and take some steps to move forward in a way that's meaningful for whatever the result you're looking for. I don't want us to, I don't know if you remember that slide, but there was a the culture of complacency. I believe it was at 37%. To me, that's scary. We don't want to see that go up next year. Complacency is terrible. I just, like, don't go there. Don't allow yourself to go there. I would rather you just be hateful and resistant. Like you like, we know where you sit, right? But you know me with that. I'm usually like a yes or no answer. I'm not like a shade of gray. So, I think you have to honor that if you are resistant, or if you understand that your company has that fatigue, acknowledge it, talk about it. There's fear behind that. What is the fear? And how will you help everyone move forward from that? If it's got to be incremental steps, it's got to be incremental steps, because you need everybody to come with you. So I wouldn't say, let's just say that's not going to happen because everybody's change fatigue, so move on. I think it's actually got to be one of the forefront of the discussions and how it's going to evolve over this year.
Let's do a quick poll with the audience on work from anywhere. Karen, could you bring up the poll for the users? You can see which of the following best describes how your company will deal with remote work a year from now. We'll give you a few seconds to answer this. I don't know about you, Raquel, but I've heard everything. I've heard this all over the map from different businesses. Wall Street Journal had articles about the leadership team saying, no way, we want them all coming back. And, and small businesses are like, we've been remote for 10 years. Why would we think anything like that? All right. I think we're good to end the polling here. Let's see. Hybrid. Yeah. 68%, far and away the most we've seen Salesforce. Salesforce has been pretty vocal about what's going to happen downtown with them and how they're going to stay remote. Is this surprising to you, Raquel?
No, we're helping a lot of our clients accomplish this goal right here with the hybrid. What I am curious though is, is it certain teams will stay remote and certain teams will go in? And is that driven because you feel like you can't do your job as well from home? Is it driven because you do have kids at home? Like, I still want to know the drivers behind that. I'm fine working from anywhere. I embrace that. I like that. My husband is not. He is still driving downtown. He likes to be the only one in the office. He's in a different environment where he feels like he can be faster if he's, on their network, things like that. So it's kind of funny how it's a polarizing topic in some ways, because some personalities which find ourselves in technology, we kind of we're okay with that, but other people are not. So I just wonder how it'll stick.
I agree. And if your job is highly collaborative, it may make sense for you to be in the office much more. If you're a leader and you feel like you need eyes on your team all the time to make sure that they're doing their work, maybe your problem is you.
It's funny you mentioned that. Trust comes up a lot with this topic, of course. And you have to work through, well, why don't you trust us, or vice versa? Where's the clarity in the work? And you mentioned the alignment. If those things are together, then there's no reason not to trust your team to do the work. But trust absolutely bubbles to the top of that conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I think it does. Eric Flick asked a question. I see that the response number this year was generally around 65, with a low watermark to several questions around 51 or 52. How do these numbers compare to last year's survey? We had a lot less responses to this year's survey, and my hallucination as to why is that people are fatigued. The same third bullet point on the screen right now. People are fatigued. And by the way, how did you get Aaron Rodgers on the slide to the right? The quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. I didn't know that you guys were working with him on the slide to the right. But yeah, Eric, we had lower participation this year, and we had a few questions skipped. I honestly think it's fatigue, and I don't know about you, but I'm not exactly the first in line when it comes to a survey to answer. But I'm glad that we got as many responses as we did, because it does drive content, and many of you have seen that in years past, that we've used these topics to drive content for the coming year.
I would love feedback on the survey itself. Was it too long? Were there questions that you want to see us report next year that we didn't touch on? That would be very welcome feedback.
Yeah, please, if you'd like to include that in the chat right now, or if you'd like to follow up with either Raquel or with me to help us tune this survey. Noah's done an amazing job, but we'd love more input from the audience as to where we need to focus. Fourth bullet item here: rising customer expectations, rapidly advancing technology, and competitive pressures continue to drive. I just cannot I cannot overestimate how important I think that customer experience topic that you brought up mid last year is. The idea that mediocrity is no longer acceptable when it comes to how you show up for your customers.
Absolutely. One easy way to do that is, stating somewhat of the obvious here, but talk to them. Host a customer advisory board. If you don't have things like that in place, those are easy ways to, pull your customers into your circle, to bring them closer to you, as well as help understand how you can continue to support where they're going.
Yeah, agreed. And this may be the most important time for IT leaders to use their emotional intelligence and to hear some hard truths from their customers and from their staff members. The team has got a clear understanding, especially the front line, of what's going on. And their answers you may not like to hear, but they're important for you to hear them, and important for you to consider them when you take action. Finally, IT leaders are acknowledging change resistance and fatigue, and they see it as a major barrier. I don't know that there's much more that we can say about that.
I feel like I hit that pretty hard. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
I think in one of your future meetings, that would be a good topic. How are you managing that resistance and fatigue, even if it's small groups and reporting back? I think that could be interesting.
I think so too. I actually think it's a topic for one of the IT leaders, and we've got an amazing set of speakers coming up this year, so don't miss. So what now? What's going to happen? We're going to distribute, thanks to Karen, who's on the phone and who makes the magic happen on the Expedient side. We'll be distributing this PowerPoint to everyone who attended today's webinar and all the survey participants who left their names as well. There are a few resources that we're going to mention here in a minute that may be valuable to you as you explore some of the results that we see in the survey and how you can take advantage of that. And naturally, Raquel and I are both available if you want to meet with us and talk about some of the specifics. And we're going to go a little bit into what we're working on these days with clients. And as always, you can go to itleaders.org/Indianapolis to see what the upcoming events are. We've got Matt Bellinger and Andrea Butcher speaking in March. I'm super excited about their topics. They're both fascinating people, and they're actually going to be working together on their presentation, which is my favorite way to approach these meetings, is the interactive side of things. And as promised, we are doing a drawing for those of you who are willing to participate. First, let's talk about the book. Raquel, do you have that book handy?
I do. Office optional. So, and I'll get this to whoever the winner is. So Larry English is our president, and we are a virtual company. We have been since our start 20 years ago. And ironically enough, in 2019, Larry started to write this book, and he one of the things that we do as a company was we have a spring meeting, a summer meeting. Everybody goes on a holiday party in January. We did not obviously this year, but what they did do in January is announce that next January we're going to Cabo. So there, we're all excited for next year. We're going to hold that for 12 months. But what it does is kind of tell the story of how we got there and how you can still keep your culture connected in a virtual world. I mean, the serendipity of the world that we landed in, and this book's timing could not have been better. So I've got a lot of clients who have read it and found some good, inspiring stories in there. We tell some of our own stories. We share some of the client stories. So hopefully whoever reads this gets a little bit out of it.
Well, Jake Smith is our winner, one of our most active members. He's at most of the events we have. Jake, congratulations if you're on. We're glad that you're involved. I'm going to take a quick look here. Yeah, he's on. Great. Fantastic. And then the $100 gift card. I don't think it needs much explanation. It's our small token of appreciation for all of you spending your time to fill out the survey. And that's going to Eric Schoonveld over at Allied Solutions. Eric, doesn't look like he's on today. He probably had an issue come up, or I know everybody has regular meetings commonly on Tuesday morning. So we'll make sure that Eric gets that gift card. So let's talk a little bit about resources that we're making available to the group when we follow up. Go ahead, Raquel.
Yeah, so the first two are from our team here at Centric. The top one is how you can focus on the business anywhere aspect. So if that is something that you're talking through or want to hear some stories about, the webinar is recorded. It has stories from other companies. They were on the webinar with us telling their story. So that's good. There's also the white paper that gives you a framework for how we are helping some of our clients move to business anywhere. So those are two resources on the top bullet. The second one's more about the agility. So if business agility was something that resonated more, there are 6 cultural strengths that we feel like can be great pillars to have in place and work toward for that agility aspect. And that's also a recorded webinar. So you can listen anywhere once you download that.
The last two are expedient resources. Developing an actionable cloud strategy really starts with developing a baseline. Where are you today? Where can you move forward? Expedient has been doing assessments for a while now, and we've actually grown and changed those assessments so you can really get an unbiased, honest look at your SaaS, your cloud, your on-premise, and your co-located environment, and what those really look like, and where you can establish a line in the sand to move forward. So the link that is listed below will be a description of those. And then what are the cloud trends in 2021? What are we hearing from our clients? We've got the link to the webinar here. We also have an ebook coming out. I was hoping that it would be ready for this on multi-cloud strategy, but it's actually going to be out here in the next few days. So you'll get to see that on the Expedient website, just the ebook on the challenges and the confusion around multi-cloud strategies these days and how you can be effective with your multi-cloud strategy. So even though this looks like Raquel in the picture, it's not her. If you want to contact Raquel, though, you can contact her at Centric Consulting. Her phone number's here and her email shows, and you can see my email as well and my phone number. And we're both happy to talk to you on any of these topics. I think one of the reasons we get along so well, Raquel, is we love to collaborate and love to hear what clients are thinking and dive a little bit deeper into the why of why people are doing what they're doing.
Yeah, we're both too curious for our own good sometimes.
Yeah, it's gotten me into trouble. I don't know about you. The websites are below, centricconsulting.com and expedient.com. We really like Centric. I know the Expedient teams, we share a number of markets that we work in together, and we don't overlap much in the work that we do, but have a lot of respect for the teams over there.
Likewise. I think that's it. This is kind of, if you want to learn more about us or Expedient, we've got some slides in the deck for you when you click through, as well as the rest of the appendix has some of the questions that we left out the results on.
Yeah, that's right. You can see there's a couple of slides about Expedient and Centric, just like Raquel said, and there's a number of a lot of the firmographics and such you'll get when you receive this. There were a few other questions that we probably should bring up in these last 10 minutes. Let's see here. Give me just a second to focus on these. Calvin Hendricks Parker, who leads many of the AWS events here in town, loves the idea of 55-minute meetings. Christy, thanks. I'm glad you like the virtual. We'll continue on with it. Calvin asks, are we surprised about SaaS given the risk of deplatforming and decommissioning of products? I've had very mixed, as we've discussed SaaS in more detail, I've had very mixed opinions on that. Most people are just trying to get their tactical sweep the floor type work off their plate. I mean, I think that's the number one driver based on the conversations that I have. And there is risk. There's no two ways about it that there's risk. We've seen a trend, especially in line of business apps, where a company who's written perpetual licensing software for years tries to move in, tries to deliver their application with minor modifications as a SaaS application, and their service levels are messed up. They really don't know what they're doing. They're spinning up multiple instances of their normal application. Maybe they haven't made any changes at all. And, clients aren't particularly happy with that. But the people who are refactoring and replatforming or replacing, are choosing wisely. I mean, they're doing their homework better than we've seen many times in the past. So, due diligence matters in these things. Just because your CEO came back from the conference with Airline Magazine or whatever it is, we're moving to the cloud. That's not what due diligence is. You all know that. Kevin Keithley asked about the color-coded cloud platform usage. That was stack ranking. The bottom level was number one choice. The next level up was number two choice. So I think that'll be clear once you look at the graph a little bit, Kevin. Brian White, I'm wondering if the perception of working from home has changed Indiana companies' hiring. What do you think about this?
I have absolutely seen that. And it's polarizing. This one's more yes and no. There are some people like, if you're going to live here, you're going to work here, or if you're going to work here, you're going to live here rather.
Right.
There are some, I've talked to a couple of CIOs who have seen this as an opportunity to take advantage of talent everywhere. So it's really polarizing. This would be one where I think you see either people say, yep, going to go for it, or like, I don't agree with that at all. And trust still comes into play here on this decision.
I think trust is the overwhelming influencer in this thing is, how are you going to look? We're seeing it. Expedient has really focused in times past about the markets that we operate in. Now we have as many clients outside of the 12 markets that we're in as we have inside of the 12 markets. So, it's not as much of an issue, not only on the customer side, but we're trying to find the best talent we can in whatever market they exist.
Right.
Angel.
There's more behind that question or not. And who was it? It was reported on Inside Indiana Business. Was it $8,500 to move to Indiana? So that we were trying to, we are trying to attract remote workers to our state. So, that's going to be interesting too, as we see other states or other incentives pop up. It could be crazy town soon. I don't know.
I like the idea of attracting more to Indiana for sure. And it seems like it's pretty new, the thinking. It did, the article that we saw didn't indicate whether it was going to be a tax credit for sure or cash money. Tax credit seems to make the most sense, but that's not a trivial number.
Right. Yeah. And for people like me, I have a freshman and a sixth grader. I'm not going anywhere right now, right? So everyone's situation is different, and that obviously plays into those decisions.
Yeah, for sure. Angel, thank you for the commenting, managing change resistance. Yeah, I think, I almost everyone I talk to these days is far more focused on the people side of IT than they've ever been before. That's where the focus on IT leaders has been since we got started. I'm so happy to see that we're considering the humans along with the technology and the project list. And just being willing to listen to what the challenges are these days. I mean, we've all got issues at home, whether it's just the day in and day out, the long haul. I don't think any of us expected to be doing this for a year, and or longer. Don't forget to ask about how people are doing and how they're dealing with all this. And maybe it's in a different venue than you normally have those conversations. Maybe you go to your coworker's backyard and holler across the 30 feet, how you doing? But we need to keep focused on that for sure. Jacob thanked us for the book. Thank you, Jacob, for being so involved. And Jeff from Indie CIO Network, appreciate the compliments. And Keith Edwards from MPH, one of the great data cores. I don't know if you all realize it, but the state of Indiana is far ahead of many of the states and how they're managing data and centralizing data and how they're managing their own internal IT. That doesn't mean the vaccine delivery is easy, but I got to give the state credit for the great work they've done, and Keith is a big part of that. Raquel, thank you so much for spending the time and effort. Karen and Noah, thank you so much for the work that you do.
Yes, thank you both. And thank you, Doug, for having us. Appreciate it. Appreciate the partnership.
Happy to do it. Karen, yeah, thank you. We appreciate the work that you're doing. So everyone, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes back to get back at your job and to get fatigued with Zoom just a little bit more today. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you in March at the next IT leaders meeting.
All right.
Bye now.
Yeah. Have a good day.